Good morning and welcome to World News here on TVP World. It's 8 a.m. local time in Warsaw. And we begin with the latest. According to an unnamed Ukrainian official, the United States and Ukraine have reached an agreement on a framework for a deal regarding natural resources. Now, the source stated that the terms were finalized after Ukraine managed to purge several points that it considered unacceptable. Now, this agreement was announced just 2 days before Volodymyr Zelensky's expected visit to Washington, D.C. Now, the unnamed Ukrainian official revealed that Ukraine is prepared to sign a deal granting U.S. access to rare minerals. In exchange, the United States would contribute to a reconstruction fund for Ukraine. Now, although Ukraine pushed for the inclusion of security guarantees in this agreement, U.S. officials rejected the proposal. Previous draft, which included a demand from President Trump for a $500 billion share of Ukraine's rare earths and other minerals, was rejected by Zelensky. Sources in Kyiv suggest he could not accept that version because it lacked U.S. commitments and instead placed the burden on Ukraine to, quote, provide everything.
I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal, very big deal. And I think the American people, even if you look at polling, they're very happy because, you know, Biden was throwing money around like it's cotton candy, and it's a very big deal. Look, it could be $1 trillion deal, it could be whatever, but it's rare earths and other things. We've pretty much negotiated our deal on raw earth and various other things. We'll be looking at that security. You're talking about general security for Ukraine later on. I don't think that's going to be a problem. There are a lot of people that want to do it. And I spoke with Russia about it. They didn't seem to have a problem with it.
Russian forces launched attacks on the cities of Kharkiv and Kyiv on Tuesday night. Now, the strikes resulted in 2 injuries in Kharkiv and 1 fatality, along with 2 additionally wounded in Kyiv. Now, 3 explosions were reported in Kharkiv, damaging several high-rise buildings. According to Kharkiv's mayor, 4 Shahid drones hit the city, striking a central road, an apartment building, and 2 cafes. Simultaneously, Russian forces also attacked Bucha on the outskirts of Kyiv, leaving 1 person dead and 2 others injured. Several residential buildings in the vicinity were set on fire. Krzysztof Gawkowski, the Polish Minister of Digital Affairs, has stated that Poland will continue to support Starlink satellite communications in war-torn Ukraine. Now, according to Gawkowski, Poland is currently providing internet access to Ukraine, covering the subscription fees to ensure security. The minister announced that, quote, Poland has ordered another 5,000 Starlink terminals, which are already partially paid for and will be sent to Kyiv in the coming weeks and months. He also stressed that because Starlink provides internet and security in both civilian and military spheres, the front remains secure. In referring to recent comments by President Volodymyr Zelensky, who stated that the United States has not dropped any hints about Starlink terminals in Ukraine potentially being shut down, but Ukraine should be prepared for such a scenario, Gawkowski said he cannot imagine any American corporation violating such agreements. The war in Ukraine was the main topic of discussions between Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Now, this meeting is officially the one that concludes Sikorski's visit to the United States.
Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs Radosław Sikorski ended his visit to the United Nations with a meeting with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The key topics discussed included the summary of the General Assembly and the Security Council of the UN, the relationship between Poland and the UN, and Russia's aggression towards Ukraine.
And now the Polish foreign minister will begin his official visit to Japan on Wednesday. Now, during his trip, Sikorski will meet several officials, including his Japanese counterpart, Takeshi Iwaya, and the Japanese Defense Minister, General Nakatani. Now, the foreign ministers of Poland and Japan are set to discuss economic and technological cooperation between the 2 countries. Also, Sikorski and Iwaya are expected to talk about opening the Japanese market for Polish produce. Following Sikorski's meetings, officials of both countries are expected to sign another agreement on a strategic partnership. The deal is said to include matters of politics, economy, science and culture, and defense, and will be valid until 2029. Another goal of Minister Sikorski's visit to Tokyo is to discuss global geopolitics and mainly the security situation in Europe and Asia Pacific. Belarus is regrouping units of its army on a large scale. Now, according to the Belarusian railway workers community, since the beginning of February, the Belarusian Ministry of Defense has been checking the combat readiness of the armed forces. Belarus is preparing wagons and railway platforms for the transportation of troops, equipment, and ammunition. At one of the stations near the capital, Minsk, more than 48 passenger cars were prepared to be sent to large military installations and strategic facilities around the country. EU leaders will hold a video conference on Wednesday where French President Emmanuel Macron will present the results of his visit to the United States. Now, the discussion is organized by European Council President Antonio Costa, who is consulting European leaders ahead of a special meeting of the European Council on Ukraine and the EU's defense capabilities. Now, during Tuesday's morning talks with Prime Minister Donald Tusk in Poland, Antonio Costa said that securing the bloc's eastern flank is now a priority for Brussels, adding that the EU will help member states make defense investments. Later the same day, the president of the European Council visited Hungary to meet with Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Now, with Donald Trump in office, the EU wants to contribute more to European security, and the details of the new set of proposals will be presented at an extraordinary summit of the European Council on March 6. The head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, is visiting the United States, where she will meet with the U.S. Secretary of State to discuss efforts to end the Russia-Ukraine war. And before heading to Washington, D.C., Kallas stressed that no agreement regarding Ukraine or Europe can take place without their participation and consent. Now, Kallas plans to discuss peace in Ukraine with Marco Rubio and other U.S. officials. Her agenda also includes a visit to the Hudson Institute, where she will join a discussion on the war in Ukraine, EU-U.S. relations, and the future of NATO. Ahead of her trip, Kallas commented on Trump's recent statements, calling Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. While still in Brussels, the head of the EU's diplomacy said that unlike Ukraine, Russia has not had fair elections in 25 years. Kallas also said that the Russian narrative is very strongly represented in statements that are coming out of the White House. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced on Tuesday that the UK will raise defense spending to 2.5% of its GDP, the largest increase since the end of the Cold War. Now, Starmer also said that he would host a number of world leaders over the weekend to discuss recent changes in American policies towards Europe and the war in Ukraine.
We will keep our manifesto commitment to spend 2.5% of our GDP on defence. But in light of the grave threats that we face, we will bring forward that target so we meet it in 2027. That is an increase of £13.4 billion year on year compared to where we are today. I have spoken to President Zelensky a number of times. I spoke to him on Wednesday night as the democratic elected leader in Ukraine. I spoke to him again on Saturday. I have spoken to President Macron this afternoon on his return to France, and I am hosting a number of countries at the weekend for us to continue to discuss how we go forward together as allies in light of the situation that we face.
Germany's prospective Chancellor Friedrich Merz has warned that Europe must brace itself for the possibility that the United States may no longer be willing to uphold its NATO defense commitments under Donald Trump. Merz also signaled his intention to engage with France and the UK on the possibility of extending their nuclear deterrence to Germany.
We have to talk to the British and the French, to both European nuclear powers, about the question of whether nuclear sharing or at least nuclear safety could be secured from the UK and France. This is an issue that the French government has in fact addressed to German governments on several occasions and which has always gone unanswered by German governments. We need to talk to each other about what this could look like. Of course, the question of decision-making is always an important decision, so who, figuratively speaking, has the suitcase in their hands? But the fact that we may simply have to become more nuclear independent in Europe is a question that has been discussed by foreign and security policy experts for many years, but unfortunately it has not yet been sufficiently discussed in the political world.
EU enlargement is the best response to Russian hybrid threats. The Polish Minister for the European Union, Adam Szłapka, said this at a press conference following the General Affairs Council in Brussels on Tuesday. Now, he added that Poland is ready to lead the process during its ongoing presidency of the EU Council.
Every single day we see how that this war is not only on the front line in Ukraine, but it's also hybrid threats, act of sabotage, so he's doing that. And I think the best response for that is to move forward with the enlargement process, and Polish presidency is determined to work on this strategic issue, and during Polish presidency we would like to speed up this process. Of course, many things depends of the Commission work, but we are also working among member states to move forward this process. And I think that the best response for that is enlargement.
Tensions are on the rise in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Supporters of Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik have rallied ahead of a court hearing set for Wednesday in a case against a pro-Russian on charges that he disobeyed the international envoy overseeing peace in the Balkan country. Now, the rally took place outside the National Assembly of Republika Srpska on Tuesday evening with the participation of hundreds of people. Dodik was indicted in 2023 for signing laws that suspended rulings by the Constitutional Court and by international peace envoy Christian Schmidt. If found guilty, he could be banned from politics or even face a prison sentence of 6 months to 5 years. Dodik rejects the indictment and has said he will not be present in court in Sarajevo on Wednesday. Now, at the rally, the Bosnian Serb leader addressed his supporters, saying he was engaged in a battle for their rights. And that's all for this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching.